Hi, everybody. It's April 23rd, 2020. This is Dr. Eliana Aaron, Director of EMA Care, and I'm going to talk to you today about some ethical issues that have come up a lot in the news in Israel. We're just going to have a discussion about that and what the controversies are about, so we understand that. And we also have a couple of questions. So I'm going to start off with the questions. Dr. Aaron said 500 meters for a walk is fine, but I've read that just for a walk to clear your head, you have to stick to 100 meters. I am a senior and I've been home for 6 weeks without walk, and here it is detrimental to my heart health. So that's a really good question. And there's a very fine line between exercising and just getting a breath of fresh air. I think what the authorities meant when they said 500 meters is people who are going out walking briskly, or as briskly as they can, or jogging, or I don't know, my husband likes to bounce a basketball, and going for a walk to get some cardiovascular exercise to increase their heart rate and get moving. When you get older, it's obviously not so easy to go jogging, and I think that the distinction is a very subtle one. I think there are people who go out to take a stroll and not for the purpose of exercising, and that would be the 100-meter rule. And the 500-meter rule is when you're going out, not for the purpose of hanging out with friends or seeing the trees, but I need to go for a walk. So then you have a 500-meter radius that you could go to. The rules are different between these things. If you're just going out for a breath of fresh air to get some vitamin D, then you still have to wear a mask. If you're going out to do a longer walk, and it's an exercise walk, and it's up to 500 meters, then you don't have to wear a mask. Now, the reason why they have that as a regulation is because a lot of people, when they go jogging, they get short of breath, and part of cardiovascular exercise is to get your heart pumping, to increase, you want to double your pulse, which causes you to be short of breath because your body is compensating and trying to get more oxygen in. So when someone's in that state and they have a barrier over here, then it is challenging for some people to be able to exercise. So they have loosened the restrictions for people who are exercising and doing cardiovascular exercising that causes a shortness of breath. And they want them to not wear a mask necessarily, but to have a mask with them. So if you're doing warm-ups and stuff like that, you still have your mask, and when you get short of breath, then you can take it off, but you still have to have one. You can't just wander around without a mask, because then you're going to get a ticket. I think if you go for a walk and you're elderly, and you go for a walk that's not going to get you out of breath, but it is exercise, then it's reasonable to walk 500 meters, but not to take the mask off unless you have to. Because remember that that mask is part of our protection. And if you don't need to take it off, I wouldn't. It's not a game where it's like, oh, I don't have to wear it, so I'm not going to. It's more of, is this detrimental to my health to wear it or it's not? And I think it's a judgment call. You're not going to get a ticket for having the mask off. It's just not a smart thing to do. So that's my guidance regarding that. And you can go walking with one designated person. So if you have somebody that you go walking with on a regular basis, who's your exercise buddy, or somebody who you live with, a spouse, a friend, whoever you live with, a partner, then you can go walking together with them. Okay. Another question is, they enjoy the program that we have, which is good, but maybe she's confused herd immunity and vaccination. And the person goes into details of what those things are. So I think it's important to know, and I'll read it. Herd immunity was being pushed certainly in the UK by mathematicians and not doctors, who don't necessarily know how disease spreads. And pretty quickly, the doctor said you're going to kill off a large number of people that way. And vaccines protect you by getting a small amount of conditions. So I I know all that. And if you look at the videos that I put out for the last month or more, then you see that we've covered all these things. So 2 ways to be immune is to either get it and recover, which, by the way, is not actually working, okay? And we talked about that yesterday with the mutations. What we're finding is that there is an increasing number of people who get this disease, recover, they do not have the disease, they're tested twice to be officially recovered, and then they get it again. So it is really not clear to anybody that you develop lifelong immunity just because you have this. It could be this is something that you get and then you get again and you get again. So this is not a good thing, and there may not be such a thing as herd immunity at this point. Vaccination is a much more long-term option. Vaccinations are going to be developed to deal with all the mutations that have happened so far. So far, that's been estimated to be over 30 mutations, and it's only been 5 months, or let's say 5 months in China. I said this yesterday, 5 months in China, but 3 months everywhere else. And we've detected, not we, like I don't work in a lab and I'm not a virologist, but virologists and epidemiologists who study infectious disease have noted that there have been many mutations. And this may account for why some people get very severe disease very quickly. Some people get no symptoms at all, but test positive. Some people get a very mild case. Some people, they're doing really well and they feel fine and then they crash. So all of these different types of cases are very confusing. And remember that treatments that work very early on do not work when you are more advanced in disease, and then they have to change it up. And this is very difficult and challenging for doctors and clinicians in the intensive care units who are taking care of patients, because there is no one formula right now. There's no magic pill. Everyone had their hopes on these anti-malarial medications. It's not been proven to work by actual studies. And so that's the issue. So herd immunity, which is what Sweden is basically doing, what the UK started doing, and we talked about this many times, is not for a disease like this going to work because people are getting it more than once, like I said. So I could be maybe immune to the one subtype that I had, but I'm still going to get a different subtype, and that one might be worse. So when they build the vaccine, and we discussed this yesterday in the video, but when we get a vaccine, they're going to have to take into account structural changes to how all of those different mutated viruses are able to attach to a human being, and developing a one-size-fits-all vaccine that's going to cover any future mutations as well. The alternative to that is that we're going to have seasonal COVID vaccines like we have seasonal flu vaccines. The problem is that the number of mutations that we're seeing and the severity of the disease are such that that's not going to be a good way to go. So they're looking for a more long-term solution that will protect people from all these different strains. Now I'm going to quickly talk about some of the issues that are trending right now in Israel, some of the concerns that people have. IKEA opens up this week, okay? IKEA is a very big store for those who are familiar with it. It's very crowded, and they don't sell medicine. They do sell food, actually, Swedish food, a little bit. They sell furniture, furnishings, plants, construction things. I mean, we know what it is. But a lot of mom and pop shops that are small and can control the flow of people going in have not been open. So some of these bigger chains have opened. Bigger stores have opened, but the small stores are left behind. And those are the businesses that are suffering the most, the small businesses. And so what's going on now in Israel, there's a lot of pushback at this point of, is there just political pressure that's causing the government to make these decisions? And the decisions should be equal across the board. It shouldn't be that one business benefits over another. Everyone should have an equal share. A lot of small stores and restaurants are allowed to deliver, but they're not allowed to have takeaway. And they said, well, you could go to IKEA, so why can't you come have takeaway at our store? What's the difference? Because that will increase business for them. Because the deliveries are very challenging. There's a lot of people who need deliveries and not enough people working in deliveries. So that's a problem for businesses. And when we think about how that is being distributed, there's a lot of unfairness that people are sensing, and people are starting to say something about that. So I think that is something to understand. There have been stores that changed the name of their store, painted over the name of their store, or plastered over it and said, now we're IKEA, so we can open too. I think you're going to see a change. Now, my issue is I look at the news and I see hundreds of people waiting in line to go into IKEA. I see no social distancing at all. I see a lot of people without masks. Everyone's touching everything. And from an epidemiological point of view, in consideration of what we are seeing in real life, and that we are not past the danger zone right here. Okay, we still have hundreds of cases a day. And we had 305 new cases today. We had 556 new cases yesterday. So I think it's very early, and I think people are so anxious to go back to work that they're starting to push out some of these things early and potentially earlier than has been measurably proven to be safe. So normally, when you start ticking up the restrictions, you also have to tick down the restrictions in a similar way and measure that people are keeping to it. And what's going on now, because of this conflict, is that people are not keeping to the restrictions the way they're supposed to. So you have people saying, well, I can go to IKEA and I can meet my brother in IKEA and hang out with him there, but I can't go to his house. How does that make sense? There's hundreds of people in IKEA. I can go and see him in IKEA. There's no social distancing being maintained. So what's the difference? So some of these things just don't make sense, and it's and people are starting to get angry about that. So I think the government is under a lot of pressure to make some significant changes. My concern is that we just went at the beginning of the week on Sunday, we just alleviated this very harsh situation that we were in for Passover. And what happens is you need 2 weeks to see if that's working, if people are sticking with it. And what happened instead is that they've continuously changed things. They made an exception for this, an exception for that. And it's going to be very hard to track what's working and what's not. Some of the indicators might be these city trends, like we did today. The city trends can indicate where there are hotspots, but that may not be good enough. And we may need to, I think that the concern here really is that we're not measuring the results before jumping to the next level. And that's really not the safest thing. So I still really recommend that people try to, even though things are open, let's try not to go out unless we need to. Let's try to maintain social distancing, even if people are not. You should. Keep your mask on. I don't care what the guy next to you is doing. I would just say, you're going to get a fine. Put your mask on and make sure it covers your actual face. I think I told that to 15 people today. And I think that it's extremely important and incumbent on us to to really protect ourselves, because we are the best protection that we have. We have to protect ourselves. We have to take care of our loved ones. They are suffering. The people who are stuck at home, the elderly, they are suffering. They are missing their family. The people who are sticking with the rules are not being rewarded here. They are still at home, and it is challenging and difficult and painful for them. I think that we have to keep these things in mind and look at them through the light of a different side. But in a case like this, a lot of the things that are going on right now don't make logical sense. They're being highly criticized in the press, and I think a lot of it is justified. Just food for thought. This is Dr. Liana Aaron, Director of EMA Care. I hope everyone stays healthy, stays safe, and please stay home. Thank you.